Hi everyone, welcome to this pre-recorded class about minor key harmony and minor key chord scales. Now previously we've talked a lot about minor key and I've emphasized the key of A minor because it was just an easy key to begin with and to emphasize the differences between the important minor scales. Natural minor, flat 6, flat 7, harmonic minor, flat 6, major 7, melodic minor, major 6, major 7, and Dorian minor 6 and flat 7. But today we're going to be looking at some examples in D minor, so we've got to switch our thinking over to the key of D minor. And all the same information is there, but now we're thinking in the key of D. And one very useful thing to do is to consolidate all the different chords into one grouping, like over here. So there are various kinds of one chord, the various types of two chords, the various types of three chords, four chords, five chords, six chords, and seven chords. And that's what we've got over here. We've got some nice groupings, a grouping of just the summation of all the different kinds of chords. D minor 7, D minor 6, D minor major 7 from the various different scales, right? Flat 2 major 7 from Phrygian, 2 minor 7 flat 5, 2 minor 7, flat 3 major 7, flat 3 augmented major 7, etc., etc. Okay, so you need to make yourself familiar with this collection of chords and all these possibilities. All right, let's look at our first piece of music. This is a song by the great Chick Corea, and it's in D minor. Here we go. This is the intro. And then they start soloing, and I recommend you listen to the whole track. I'm giving a link to it, and you should download this chart if I've attached it, which I intend to do. And then what I want you to do now is, first of all, analyze it, right? So Roman numerals. I'm going to give you, I recommend that you pause the video at this point, spend a couple of minutes analyzing it, applying Roman numerals to it, then restart the video so that you can see what the analysis is and check your answers, and then we're going to talk about it. Okay, so right now let's pause the video while you do this work. And you can do the work on an iPad or by pencil and paper. Okay, we're back, and here's the analysis. 1 minor 7, 5 7 over its third, it's an inversion. 1 minor 7 over flat 7, and we would draw the arrow because the root motion of the dominant chord is in fact still down a fifth, even though the bass motion is not down a fifth. This also, you may have spotted, is sort of a line cliche in the sense that there's a single moving line. Now the harmony is changing a little bit, but it's pretty much a line cliche type move here, continuing on down to this 4 major over its third. So we have D, C sharp, C natural, B, stepwise motion. 4 minor 7, 5 7 of 4 over its third, arrow because root motion is down a fifth even though bass motion is not down a fifth. 4 minor 7 over flat 7. Now this is a tricky one. So this is really, E is not a chord tone when there's 7, because it would be a tension then. So really the effect of this chord, you may have written this, but more correct would be 2 minor 7 flat 5. Because when you add up the notes, E, G, B flat, D, that forms an E minor 7 flat 5. Now it does have an F because it's got a G minor 7, so it's not really a typical structure. It's more a result of voice leading. I would accept either of those two answers. Neither one is 100% correct in terms of chord symbol. It's really a line. It's really a continuation of the line cliche idea. 2, 5, resolving deceptively because it doesn't go down a fifth. related to of, actually the related to of sub 5 of 5, which resolves deceptively because it doesn't go to 5. Instead, it goes down a fifth. So we would draw the arrow, even though it's a deceptive because it's going down a fifth. To flat 2 major 7 modal interchange chord or composite minor chord. 2 5, draw the arrow. 1 2 5 bracket, arrow 1. Okay. Now the next activity is we're going to try to figure out if we can sort of assume some of the chord scales by looking at the melody. So what I want you to do next is analyze all the melody notes against the chord of the moment. So for example, you'll look at this A and you'll say, what's A in relation to D? Well, that's 5. What's D in relation to D? That's 1. What's F? It's flat 3. And what is A again? 5, and so on. Now when you have an anticipation like this, it goes with the next chord. So that is going with A, so that's 1. And that would be 3, and this would be 5, and so on. So I want you to pause the video again, and then analyze all the melody notes, and then restart the video. Okay, we're back. So 5 1 flat 3 5 1 3 5 1 5 1 flat 3 5 11. Right, we're doing chord scale labeling. Flat 3 5 1 flat 7 13 1 flat 7 13. Passing tone, PT for passing tone. You might have written S flat 6. That would be okay as well. 5 1 flat 3 5 1. Here, let's put that as S flat 6. 3 5 1 5. That's still 5 1 flat 3 5 11 flat 3 5 11 flat 3 9 11 flat 3 9 1 9 1 flat 7 5 3 5 1 sharp 9 1 5 13 1 1 flat 7 13 5 3 3 down an octave S 4 5 3 13 7 9 1 another passing tone, chromatic passing tone, flat 7 S flat 6 3 5 1 flat 7, and then a bunch of chord tones, 11 attention, and then flat 3 flat 7 guide tones, flat 13 and sharp 9 here, and 1 and 5, and these here. Okay, so these can give us clues as to what the chord scale is. 1 minor 7, we'd assume it could be Aeolian, we'd assume it could be Dorian. There's nothing here to tell us whether it's Dorian or Aeolian because there's no 6th degree, so it could either be either one. Same thing here, this is only chord tones, so we don't know absolutely the chord scale, but we would assume it's the typical chord scale, which would be the chord scale with diatonic tensions, which would be mixo flat 9, sharp 9, flat 13. When there's nothing to contradict the default, then you go with the default. Same thing here, nothing to contradict the default, so probably Dorian or Aeolian, really. Actually Aeolian because of the key signature. This is going to be Dorian. We don't actually have a B natural, but we have it in the melody, but we have it in the chord. This is all chord tones, so the default would be Dorian. This is 5704. The default is mixo flat 9, flat 13, and so we would go with that. Dorian, nothing to contradict it. This one, if we're keeping it as a G minor scale, then it would be 11 flat 13 9, 11 flat 13 9 1 9. I think that's probably a better way to think of it rather than E minor 7 flat 5. Like a G minor 13 chord. Again, assumption of Dorian, typical assumption of mixo flat 9 flat sharp 9 flat 13. Assumption of Dorian. Assumption of Lydian flat 7 because there's nothing to contradict it. Assumption of Lydian, nothing to contradict it. Dorian, mixo flat 9, flat 13. Dorian, or sorry, Aeolian, Dorian, and then here mixo flat 9, flat 13, sharp 9, because look at the notes. Okay, so that's the process. That's how you would figure out the chord scales. When there's nothing to contradict the default chord scale, then you go with that. Key signature, it doesn't mean you couldn't use it doesn't mean you couldn't use Dorian here, but there's nothing to contradict Aeolian, so we would go with that. The key signature is Aeolian. Nothing to contradict mixo flat 9, sharp 9, flat 13, so you'd go with that. Okay, so that's the process for figuring out chord scales. And it's very instructive to analyze melodies to do this. So now we're going to move over to the actual thing that's related to the homework you're going to do, which is a song called Minor Point, and it's just written as an educational piece of music, or for the purpose of doing an exercise, but it's got a lot of stuff is crammed into this piece of music. So let's take a look at it. Here's what it sounds like. Okay, now we're going to look at Minor Point. Now previously you've done an analysis of this, and so you should be able to see your you should have been able to check your answers. But if you haven't done that, then you should stop the video now and do the analysis. But we're going to listen to it once while I hope you'll all agree there's a lot of rich harmony that we can get by using composite minor harmony. So again, if you haven't done the analysis yet, you should go back to Minor Point Part 1 assignment and complete your analysis, and then pause the video and then come back and see the answers. All right. Here are the answers. This is the answer key. Let's put that on here. And you can see the analysis and how the melody is going to give us a lot of clues about not only obviously what the chord is, but what the chord scale might be. So make sure you've checked your analysis. Now let's go on to look at the chord scales. So on the next page, you need to write the chord scales. Let's find that page. Here it is. Okay, so you have to do chord number 1, D minor 6. Clearly, that's a chord scale with a major 6 in it. And we know there's a couple of minor scales that have a major 6 in them. Let's look back at our chart here. And you can see that 1 minor 6 exists in potentially, it's not written out here, but it exists potentially in this key because there's a raised 6, so you could have a 1 minor 6 there. And you could also have a 1 minor 6 in Dorian because it has a raised 6th. So, so the question is, what other notes are in the melody? So if you look at the melody again, not only is there a raised 6, but there's also a flat 7. So that means it has to be Dorian, because Dorian has a raised 6 but a flat 7, whereas melodic minor has both a raised 6 and a raised 7. So the answer there is going to be Dorian, right? Because the melody is giving you that clue. Unlike the Chicoria tune, this song is written to make it pretty much clear what the chord scale is, or at least hint very strongly. Now we come to this chord. This is a D Dorian, or this is a Dorian scale, and that would be the assumption, and there's nothing to contradict it, so that's what the answer would be there. This scale, you're not being asked for this scale. This scale, what you've seen from the analysis, this is flat 6, major 7. Flat 6, major 7 comes from Aeolian. There it is. So you're going to take the notes of the Aeolian, which are D minor scale, rewrite them starting on B flat. And what are you going to get? Well, let's see. This is how we get the chord scale. Aeolian notes are these. Right? But what we're going to do is we're going to take those same notes, but we're going to start them on B flat. Instead of starting on D, we just reorder them. And what do we get? 1, 2, 3, sharp 4, sharp 11, 5, 13, major 7. You get a Lydian chord scale. So that is the chord scale for flat 6, major 7. And that's the answer that you would write from that number. So what you're going to do is proceed through the whole process and figure out all these chord scales. And if the melody, will either make you in no doubt about what this chord scale is, or you will just simply use the default setting for that chord, or the chord scale that you would get by simply taking the notes from the source scale and reordering them on the root of the chord. Let's do one more. Let's do D7 sharp 9, which we know is 5, 7, and 4. So we have a default setting for that. And again, if you don't remember your default settings, go back to that document that I uploaded before, and which I will I'll show you again here, called Minor Key Summary. And it has the basics about tonic minor chords, subdominant minor chords, and then it gets to secondary dominants. And the basics of secondary dominants are that if the secondary dominant has a minor target, it's going to have minor tensions. 5, 7 of flat 6 is going to have, it's a major chord, so it has major tensions. And then 5, 7 of flat 3, though it's a major chord, requires at least one non-diatonic tension to be a secondary dominant. So usually that non-diatonic tension is flat 9. But these are like minor, minor leads you to minor, major leads you to major, and then this is the one exception. So 5, 7 of 4, we would expect it to be minor tensions. It's going to a minor chord, flat 9, sharp 9, flat 13. And if we look at a minor point again, we see there it is. It's got a sharp 9 right in the chord symbol. So mixo flat 9, sharp 9, flat 13. All right, so go through the whole process, writing out the chord scales for just the chords that have numbers by them. If you're not sure what the chord scale is, go to the source, go back, look at your, figure out where does 6 minor 7 flat 5 come from, and then choose one of the scales that it comes from as the source scale, and then rewrite the notes starting on the root of the chord, and you will have the chord scale for that chord. And write them all out here, and then check your answers with the posted answer key under the accompanying assignment, which is minor point part 2. Okay? And I would listen to the song a couple of times while you're following along with the analysis and following along with your chord scale choices to get the most out of it. All right, that's it for this class. I hope this has been helpful. Once again, just to sum up, we know that we can produce a lot of rich types of chords from composite minor. It's very useful to do a summation of them like this. What are my various kinds of 1 chords? What are my various kinds of 2 chords? And so on. And then have that at your disposal when you're doing analysis. And then also understand that we get the chord scales by going back to the source scale, taking the notes of the source scale and restarting them on the root of the chord, and that will give us our chord scale.